If you're over 40 and can't lose belly fat despite dieting and exercising, there is a reason, and it's not entirely your fault. Let's have a discussion about why your gut is sabotaging your weight loss. Let's get to the real reason why you can't lose that unwanted belly fat and how you can start losing menopause belly fat bloat. I should say belly fat and bloat in 7 days. Let us have a real conversation about the truth behind why losing belly fat can be so difficult. Hi, my name is Sheila, and welcome back to my channel, Menopause Energized. I am a registered nurse and a health coach and the founder of Menopause Energized. And as some of you all know, my program is a program that's here to support you with the tools and education and resources to help you navigate and thrive through your menopause journey. Okay, so ladies, I just wondering, have you been blaming your hormones for menopause weight gain? Yes, you can. Well, let's hold on there. You're missing one of the biggest culprits, and that is an unhealthy gut. And the truth is, until you fix your gut, no diet or workout will work how you want it to, and you will not see the desired results you are looking for. Menopause can be a difficult transition in a woman's life, especially when the drop in estrogen triggers the onset of various symptoms. I know this personally, ladies, because I have been down that road. The decline in estrogen and progesterone slows metabolism, making it easier to gain weight and harder to lose it. With hormonal shifts, you also have muscle loss, which reduces calorie burning and leads to fat accumulation, especially ladies in that doggone midsection. Some people call it the meno belly, some people call it the menopause belly. When estrogen level drops, fat storage shifts from the hips and the thighs, yes, ladies, to the abdomen. This leads to the development of visceral fat, which is hormonally active and can worsen existing imbalances. Some may ask exactly what is visceral fat. Well, visceral fat is a type of fat that surrounds your internal organs, such as the liver, the stomach, and the intestines, deep within your abdominal cavity. Now that doesn't sound too good, does it? And unlike subcutaneous fat, which sits just beneath the skin and can be pinched, visceral fat is hidden and plays a more active role in your body's function, and excessive visceral fat can again lead to chronic health issues. This type of fat is harder to lose, ladies, than any other types of belly fat. This is one of the main reasons why you are losing weight everywhere else except the belly. We also have something called, you may have heard of this, insulin resistance. This is another reason for fat storage. As you know, our body produces insulin from the pancreas. Hormonal shifts can make the body more insulin resistant, which means the insulin cannot function properly to move the glucose or the sugar, however way you want to put it, from the blood into the cells. The cells is where we need the glucose stored for energy, not hanging around in the bloodstream causing all sorts of problems. So it's harder to regulate that blood sugar and more likely to store excess glucose as fat. So let's dive straight in and explore how you can start to shed belly fat and bloat in 7 days by keeping your gut healthy and balanced. This is just the beginning. Come see what's next. Hey everyone, thank you for sticking around, and we're going to get to the second half, and we're going to be talking about a healthy gut. I have a diagram here of a healthy gut, and I'm basically just going to go over a brief anatomy of what a healthy gut looks like and the parts that is contained in what we call the internal human digestive system. So here we start with this diagram, and what we have here is the whole human digestive system. We have the liver, and we have two lobes of the liver, and one is always bigger than the other. right behind the liver sits the esophagus that leads into the stomach. And as we're all aware that as soon as we start chewing our food, the digestive process takes place, because in our saliva you have the enzymes there that starts breaking down the food. So the food would travel from our mouth into the esophagus directly into the stomach. Now you have some other things helping out with the digestive process, and that is the gallbladder, which is this little green thing here, and you have the tail of the gallbladder there. That's going to also dump enzymes into the digestive system to help digest the food. Then this little yellow part you see here, you guys, that's the pancreas. The pancreas is another organ that helps aid in the digestion of food. Now, just to go, the stomach sits more on the left side of our body. The gallbladder sits right underneath the liver, which is right under here, which is on the right side. And then the pancreas is somewhere right up in here. So that's why when you start having pain and you go to the doctor in the belly area, they get to feeling around, because a lot of the doctors that's really good at palpating and knowing what they're feeling, if something is enlarged, they'll be able to feel the liver possibly, maybe even the gallbladder, maybe even the pancreas. And that's why you see the doctors do a full belly exam that way. So once the food goes through the esophagus to the stomach, and then the gallbladder and the pancreas go ahead and dump their enzymes as well, this little loop here starts naming the small intestine. But what that little loop is called, the duodenum. So the food will come, or food particles will go through the duodenum, and then the next place it goes into is the small intestines. All the little intestines you see here is the small intestines. The big loop here is your large intestines. And from what I hear, they say when you take out intestines, when they're doing, I guess, pathology and all that, it can go for a long, long ways. We have a long loop of intestines in our system. That's why when some people do lose part of their intestines, whether it's a little bit, a quarter, whatever, we can still pretty much live okay. There may have to be some revisions sometime. When you hear things called, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this term, hemicolectomy, which is removal of part of your intestines. And so people still can live okay having that done. It really just depends on how extensive the damage was done and how much part of the damage was done to the intestines. So we have the food going through the intestines here, starting with the digestion and then the absorption process. This is where the bulk of the digestion takes place, is right in the small intestines. From there, there is a connection from the small intestines into the large intestine, and it happens right over here somewhere. And then all the food will start going into the large intestines. This big loop of dark area you see there, okay, you call it a dark pink, is your large intestines. This little string that you see right here, that's just muscle that surrounds the large intestines. So the food will continue to travel up, and this is when it starts getting really formed, is when it starts getting into your large intestine. So it will transfer up, and anytime you go up, we call it the ascending colon. We won't go into all of it, little different positions here. You can say this is like a junction where things meet, but you go and travel that particles up and then down, and that's why when they start going down, they call it the descending colon. From the descending colon, our stool, poop, bowel movement, whatever you want to call it whatever you want, but some people just say waste. Our waste will, of course, like I said, continue to form, and when it forms, it comes all the way down through the sigmoid colon, down to the rectum, and expels out through the anal canal. So that is what a healthy gut looks like, and I just wanted to kind of briefly explain that to you before we get into everything else, just so you know exactly how our digestive system works. Now, a lot of people don't even think about talking about the intestines or the gut. They just look at it as like, oh, that's the thing that gets rid of waste. Who has time to be bothered about talking about the intestines? Well, I'll tell you why. Our intestines is actually our buddy. And when I say buddy, I mean that our intestines is 70% of our immune system. Everything that goes on in our body as far as fighting off infection and inflammation, guess who's responsible for that? Guess who's helping us out with that? It is our intestine. The immunity, 70% of it lives in our intestine. The other 30% live in little different other areas of our body, but the main ingredients of that is in the intestines, ladies. It fights off infection. It can try to fight off different autoimmune diseases, things like that. But it all takes place in the intestines. Most of the good bacteria that helps to fight off this infection that we have lives in the large part of the intestine. And it's about really 90% of it. And 10% of it lies in the small intestine. Kind of makes sense in a way, because when you think about when the stool starts to form and everything, that's when you really have more of a potential of bacteria and infection setting in. So that's where it does most of the fighting at. The good bacteria is in the large intestines. A healthy gut, though, ladies, a healthy gut regulates digestion, helps eliminate waste, helps with inflammation, and is a strong barrier against harmful organisms. When our gut is not treated well, yes, by us, when our gut is mistreated, it will start to break down its barrier. When it breaks down its barrier, if you all have ever heard of this phrase, it is called, unhealthy gut is called a leaky gut syndrome. This picture down here gives you a picture, ladies, of an unhealthy gut. Well, somewhat, kind of put your imagination to it. As you notice these little leaks here, what does that look like? Just like a leak that comes out of a faucet. Leak, 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 leak. Maybe not quite. But do you see that leak? When you have an unhealthy gut, for whatever reason it is, it breaks down the barrier, and guess what happens? That bad bacteria that's sitting outside your system, waiting to get in and do some harm, has a free way to get in now because the barrier is broken. So that bad bacteria, which is right here, these little bad looking little men you see ready to rush in, rushes in. But guess what happens when it rushes in? Anytime you have a leak, things can go in or out. So as the bad bacteria is going in, guess what's leaking out, ladies? The good bacteria. And that's what we do not want. So a leaky gut can lead to all different types of things when you have an unhealthy gut. Diarrhea, constipation, and yes, brain fog. The way you treat your gut can have a lot to do with brain fog. The type of nutrition you get in can make your judgment, or not judgment, I wouldn't say, but just when you have that little bit of cloudiness, where maybe you thought you had put something somewhere and you don't remember, or you just did something and you kind of don't remember that you just did it. It's that little brief brain fog that we get, that a lot of us get. I had a lot of it, but a lot of us get in our menopausal years. Yes, your nutrition and the nutrients you take in has a lot to do with that. Also, you have other chronic conditions that can happen. Inflammation, infection, and again, autoimmune diseases can also pop up, unfortunately. And there is research that shows that sometimes women can get a certain type of autoimmune diseases when they're in their menopausal phase. And so it makes it harder also when you have a leaky gut to feel satisfied. When your gut is not healthy, when you eat, for some, if you still feel hungry, that may be a reason. And that may now have you say, I need to fix my gut. Because you can eat and then go back and eat again. And this is how we gain weight, and this is how we gain what we call that menobelly. And that's something we're trying to stay away from. So if your gut's not healthy, then you continue to feel not satisfied, you most likely have a leaky gut. Also, imbalanced gut bacteria can increase sugar craving, which is kind of the same thing indirectly. It increases sugar craving, leading again, ladies, to excessive calorie count. Can you see the picture coming together of why we start gaining this mental belly. Remember, we're not the same as we used to be when we were in our 20s, our 30s. Menopause changes us, and it's not always for the worse. And as I get into my program, we talk about that. It can actually change you for the better. But we do have to watch and do things differently now in our menopausal years than when we were in our 20s and 30s. The strategies below are not going to show you the results you're looking for without a partner. When I say that, if you notice I have here X's besides, I have the X's beside calorie cutting, low carb, keto, excessive cardio, detox teas, belly wraps. Now, are certain one of them good for you and you can lose some weight? Absolutely. I'm not sitting here saying that these items do not work. It does, but sometimes you may not always see the results that you want to see. A lot of times you say, wow, I'm doing all of this and the weight is still not dropping off the way I want it to. Well, guess what? You know certain things in life where they say you cannot do it alone? This is a situation right here. You can't do this alone. You need a partner. And that partner is to combine it with helping yourself have a healthy gut. So the secret transformation begins with not really the things on the outside. You should start working with things on the inside out before you work with the things for the outside in. Start working with what's good for the gut and then take in after that or partner it up, whatever way you want, with these things here, and you will definitely see a difference in your weight loss. I would not be here teaching any of this stuff if I have not tried it myself, and it does work. Now, do I get on here and tell you how much weight I've lost? I've never been a fat person, but there are times where I've gained a few pounds over that I want to get off. And I know sometimes that I do jump off the bandwagon because we're going to be truthful here. When you listen to these programs that promise you all these promises, I don't like to get on here doing a whole bunch of promises because, first of all, life is not perfect. What I'm saying here is that you can lose more weight effectively if you partnered up with the healthy gut. I'm not going to sit and say you're going to lose 20 pounds, you're going to lose 30 pounds, you're going to lose 40 pounds. Everybody's metabolism is different, so your body is going to progress differently than others. So what I can lose and what someone else can use is a totally different story. It just depends on the metabolism and exactly what you're taking in because you may modify it a little differently. So I always say when you hear someone saying they lost 20 pounds and you're trying to follow after them, it's only going to lead to anxiety. You do the best that you can to lose the weight. The whole goal of my program is not about just consistency, it's just about being persistent. So yes, I do have really good results when I stick to this, but again, it just depends on your metabolism. Now, again, when we go back to being perfect, do I jump off that bandwagon? Do I, when I drive down the street with my husband and I say, you know what, I'm tired of this, I got, stop at that McDonald's, get me a chocolate milkshake. And what I used to do was feel guilty about things like that back in the day. I don't beat myself up about it anymore. I go ahead and do my little treat, and then I get back to what I need to do, and I feel so much better. I don't have that guilt feeling. We do not need to have a whole lot of guilt feeling going through our menopausal years because we're going through enough as it is just dealing with the emotional part. We have a lot of different parts to deal with, but the emotional part alone is probably one of the biggest challenges through our menopausal journey. And don't forget, ladies, and I teach all this as well, once you're out of your menopausal stage, you are in your postmenopausal stage. You don't hear post mentioned much, but you will be in your postmenopausal phase for the rest of your life. Just say that you're going through your menopause journey. Symptoms and things and different things will get better, faster for some than others, slower for some than others. Just remember that. But we will be in a postmenopause phase for the rest of our life. So this is what a healthy gut looks like. See, you don't have no more of those little things trying to get in. It's just a healthy gut. And this is what we really need to try to obtain in our menopausal years. Otherwise, we will have all sorts of issues going on with not just, see, we think it's just contained to our gastrointestinal area where we think the problem is going to be diarrhea and constipation. What I'm trying to tell you, this is your immune system. So you're not going to just have problems directly related to your gut. You're going to have problems directly related to your whole body system, because that is the immune system that's trying to fight off anything that's coming in, not just anything attacking your gut, anything that's coming in, period, that's trying to attack you and give you chronic conditions. Your intestine is there to save you. Listen to the silent whispers, lady. Our body gives us all the, most of the time. Sometimes we just ignore it. But listen and pay attention to silent whispers that your body is trying to tell you. It could be your biggest defense mechanism, more than somebody else trying to tell you what's going on, which sometimes can always be possible too. But you know, when that person told you, most of the time, you knew it already. Let's move on. We're going to talk about foods that are healthy for the gut. Again, some of you all may already know some of this. My program strives to give information to those that really want to be educated and did not know this. You know, I've been in a few situations, and you know, you've been in there where you get a few people that they are Dr. Fauci, or they are the lawyer, the lawyer Epstein. There are a few that feel like they don't need any teaching on anything. So I'm trying to just gear my program for people that really need the education. So foods that are healthy for your gut, that are not healthy for your gut, artificial sweeteners. When I start naming all this stuff, I'm not saying to cut this stuff out completely out your diet, because again, we can't live life like that. To try to live this perfect life where you're trying to do everything correctly. That will just wear you down, send you into anxiety attacks, send you into feeling down. We don't need that. What I'm saying is watch the things you take into your system. It will affect your gut. Do things in moderation. So please don't binge on artificial sweeteners. It is not good for you with too much. Now these will give you gastrointestinal problems. For some, it's constipation, and for some, it's diarrhea. Keep a track of your pattern when you eat certain things. So if different things start to happen to you that you feel, try to keep a pattern of what you may have eaten the day before or last week that's causing all of a sudden all these symptoms you may have. Flavored yogurt, again, just be careful with that, because a lot of the flavored yogurts have a lot of sugar in it. What you want to do is the unsweetened Greek yogurt. Now, for some, love it. For me, is it the best tasting thing in the world? Whew, no, not at all. But I will eat it because it's good. It has what we call, of course, what we need in our digestive tract is, and I'll explain that in a few minutes, is the probiotics. So I will acquire the taste for anything if I know it's good for me. So if you're looking at this video and you get off this video and there's many times you say you will not eat something because you can't stand the taste, you may want to think twice. Now, if the taste is going to make you nauseated and feel like you're going to just vomit or puke or whatever, that's a different story. I'm not trying to be here and make anybody miserable. But if it's just because you don't like the taste, you may want to think twice, because it is really good for your system. There's foods I have put into my system now that I would have never eaten a million years ago. Wait a minute, I wasn't living a million years ago. Well, anyway, that I was eating a few years ago, I do now, because I know it's good for my system, even though I don't really like the taste too much, but I've acquired the taste. Granola bars, be careful with. They're full of sugar as well. Whole wheat bread, there's a controversy about that. I think you might have learned people saying whole wheat bread is so much better for you than white bread. And I'm going to skip down to that also and put the multi-grain bread in with it as well. Again, they have a lot of refined grains and preservatives that can actually, believe it or not, cause bloating in your digestive tract and digestive distress, I should say. So if you eat a lot of those, just keep, again, an eye on your pattern and you feel like you're having a lot of bloating and digestive problems, it may be certain foods that you're taking in. So just keep an eye on your pattern. I will tell you though, foods rich in probiotics, for me, can cause less bloating. It does help with less bloating. And the Nutrigrain multi-grain breads, that's one of my favorite breads. And when I do, I really do cut out a lot of bread out of my system, but when I have a taste for it, I cannot eat the cheap bread, ladies. I'm sorry. What is it called? Love bread, that's $1. But when I do decide to treat myself to a piece of bread, I'm going to go out and get the good stuff. I love potato bread. What's that bread that tastes really sweet? I can't think of the name, and it looks a little yellow. One of my favorite breads. So when I do go out and cheat, that's the bread I get. But I do love multigrain. I eat it maybe once a year when I decide that I want a good old grilled cheese sandwich. The best grilled cheese sandwich is on a multigrain bread. But again, you have to be careful with those. A lot of what did I say? Refined grains. Also, oat milk. You want to be careful with. There are some brands out there that's better than others, so keep an eye on that. Always read your labels. I have been reading my labels with everything I get for years now. It is a nuisance in the beginning, but you will get used to it. It's just like second nature after you do it. Sometimes I go in the market and I'm reading all my labels before I put my food in the cart, and a couple of people will look at me and like, what is wrong with her? What is she, a obsessive compulsive person or what? But it really, as we get older and get through our menopausal years, because our body changes and it's going to do all type of crazy things, we need to know what we're putting in our system, the amount, the carbs, the sugar, the fat, all those types, saturated fat versus the other type of fats, polysaturated versus unsaturated. We need to know all that. That's going to also help with maintaining a healthy gut. Nut butters, almond butters, keep an eye on that as well, can be full of additive sugars. And vegetable chips, I've never tried those before. Be careful with those too. A lot of them are fried in oil, just like a lot of chips are. I'm not saying you should never eat them, but there are people that do, and the reason why I'm saying it, that do binge. There's people that I know that take those artificial sweeteners like Splenda and use loads of them a day to put in everything. That is a little too much. It will mess up your gastrointestinal tract, so be careful with that. Do you see this little red thing here, this little red note here? That's so important. That's why I put it in red. It's called sodium. We all know what sodium is. May not only really recognize what sodium is, but sodium can be very unhealthy, especially for women in their menopausal years, because our body changes, and there's certain hormones that does certain things to our body that changes a way we take in and absorb everything. Sodium we have to really be careful with. Now, back in the day, I don't know, when you were young, you used to hear little kids talk about, or people say as you get older, women get fat ankles. Well, excuse me, because guess what? It is true. Sometimes as women get older, we get the fat ankles. What is that fat ankles from? It's nothing but fluid, ladies. It's nothing but too much or excessive sodium. Now, for the ones that have congestive heart failure and different chronic conditions, that's a different story. They have problems with their heart and their lungs that does not perfuse everything correctly throughout their body, the fluid or whatever, because most of the fluid a lot of times will settle to the bottom of your extremities. That's a different story. They have to be on medicines for that. They have to be on a sodium-restricted diet. Sometimes some of them even have to be on a fluid-restricted diet. I'm not talking about those if you guys are on here and have a history of congestive heart failure. And later on in my programs, we go down the line. Like I said, my whole program is built on women's health in menopausal years. It's not just built on just the hot flashes. Overall, women's health in the menopausal years, so we can get into talking about CHF and hypertension and diabetes and all those type of things. So if you're on here and you have a history of congestive heart failure, I'm not so much talking about you with this. I'm talking about the women that do not have any type of conditions that make them retain fluid. It is because you are consuming too much sodium. You need to keep an eye on that. You need to read your labels when you go into the store. A lot of those diets, or not a lot of them, but there are some of those frozen diets and stuff. Be careful with those. Read them because a lot of them are full of sodium. When you take in one of those box dinners that, even not if it's not diet, the regular one, and you look on the box and the sodium content in there is like 1,200. That's way too much in one meal. Healthy choice is a good one. Um, Sometimes you can get some of them that only contain 450 to 500 of sodiums in the whole dinner deal. I used to do those. I don't do them as much as I used to. I think sometimes because you just get tired of things over and over and over again, and you want to try something different. But I do at times sometimes stack my freezer with those. That's the low sodium one. But when you take in too much salt, yes, it is going to retain in your ankles, but not just in your ankles. If you have fluid there, it's not going to just go to your ankles, even though that's the main place where it goes, because fluid usually travels down and settle. But you may find some around the belly area as well. And I will tell you, along with the healthy gut, sodium intake, if you know you're taking too much sodium and you decrease that sodium intake, you will see a difference in your weight as well. Partner up with everything else. You will see a difference in your weight. So watch your sodium intake as well. And the other thing is that when you start, measuring how much weight you lost, a lot of times we talk about the scale. But do we really talk about measuring abdominal girth? We should also be measuring our abdominal girth, ladies, so we can see, because what are we more concerned about? Well, not that we're more concerned about, but we hate when we lose everything everywhere else, but you still got the belly. So check your abdominal girth. How many times a week should you do it? It's up to you. Twice a week sounds good to me. The scale, do what you feel comfortable with. I'm not even going to tell you how often I get on a scale. No, I don't get on a scale 5-6 times a day. I do not. But I do get on a scale a little more than probably some would. That's just what works for me, and it has worked for me for years, and it does not give me any type of anxiety. You do have to do what works for you. Now, of course, if you're doing a weekly thing, you do want to get on a scale at the end of the week to see how much you lost. At the end of this video, check my link. I do have a 7-day program where it's not a, I don't like to call it a diet, but it's what you can eat for the next 7 days, coupled up with whatever else you do to help you lose that weight. You can modify it any type of way you want that stays within the healthy part of it, but it is there for 7 days. It tells you what you should eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Partner up with whatever exercises you do, things like that. Watch your sodium. I'm telling you, when you get, see, the problem is, a lot of us is taking in more sodium than what we realize because we're not counting the sodium we're taking in. It's hard to do when you go out to eat at a restaurant. You can't, you don't know how much sodium is in it. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of sodium in restaurant food. So when you come home and you ate that pizza or you ate that Chinese food and then you're sitting there wondering why you got all this fluid in your ankles, that is why. Yes, you can elevate and it will go down for a little while, but it's going to come right back if you continue to put that excessive sodium in your system. So be careful your sodium intake. I can't really tell you how much you should take in. It's going to be different for a person with high blood pressure versus a person with no high blood pressure. And I do have a nutritional program coming out, and I do discuss all of that in that nutritional program as well. So I'll have a nutritional program coming out, and just for nutrition, and I'll have a whole holistic approach, 8-week approach to menopause. And it's going to start from the beginning, take you down the road for 8 weeks, and hopefully lead into, ladies, a transformation. We want to see a transformation, ladies. And that's what the 8-week program is about. I already have another video on that alone. That's why I'm not going into that now, that you can watch that video as well. So we talked about that. Now let's go to the foods that are good for you. The secret to transformation begins in your gut. Practical ways to nourish and protect your gut health is starting with probiotics and prebiotics. We hear a lot about probiotics, but do we really, seriously, do we really hear a lot of talk about prebiotics? We do not. And they have to be partnered together. Did you know that the prebiotics was actually the probiotics' brother? They work together. They get together and fight war with those bad bacteria. The difference is the probiotics is live bacteria And think of the prebiotics as a fertilizer. It fertilizes his brother so that he can be stronger to fight that bad bacteria. So the prebiotics is what we call non-digestive fibers. Not every fiber contains prebiotics, but there are fibers out there, certain ones that do have the prebiotics. That don't mean you don't do the other fibers, because the other fibers are still good for you. It's just that not all fibers have prebiotics. So, of course, we already know most foods that are rich in probiotics are fermented type of foods. That's made up in the wherever the compound that they make all these different put together all these different types of foods. It's a shame I can't even think of the word right now. But anyway, so we look for foods fermented. Which one? We already talked about it. I think we talked about it, didn't we? The yogurt. The yogurt is rich in probiotics. Again, no sugar. Greek yogurt is the best. Kefir. I've never tried that before, but it is a fermented milk drink, and I heard a lot of people use that to make rice puddings with. That is good foods, a good source of probiotics. Sauerkraut. Well, you may not see me looking too pleasant about that one. That's not one of my favorite, but there are some people that love sauerkraut. Well, guess what? Now, you probably say to yourself, why don't I acquire a taste for that? Give me time. But sauerkraut is rich in probiotics. Pickles, someone may not have known this. Pickles is rich in probiotics. Be careful with the pickle. I forgot where I was a few years ago, and I had someone that loved pickles, and they sat there and ate a whole jar of pickles. Look at the label. Again, start paying attention to your labels and look and see what the sodium content is in pickles. I don't eat pickles like that, so I'm not sure what the sodium content is, but always check that out. Apple cider vinegar. Let me tell you from what I hear, this is only from what I hear. If you get the apple cider vinegar, you got to get the raw with the mother. Have you ever heard of that? The raw with the mother. That's supposed to be the best nutrient or nutritional? Okay. Apple cider vinegar that's good for your body. You'll probably want to go to places like Sprouts and those type of places to find that, because I didn't see this in the regular store, and I look for that raw with the mother. There is some, not really like a whole lot of research on it, but they're saying some research has shown that apple cider vinegar is very good for you, that sometimes it can help maintain blood pressure, it can help maintain blood sugar. I will tell you, I do try this every once in a while, and I've had a couple of people tell me that it helps keep their blood sugar at a healthy level. Especially when they go out and they've eaten more than what they should have, and what they do is at bedtime at night, they take a little bit of apple cider vinegar, and some say it helps. I'm not saying this is written in stone. I'm not saying that's what you should try, but some people do like to use apple cider vinegar. And then, of course, there's the supplemental over-the-counter medications. I'm not here to prescribe any type of medications, even the over-the-counter ones. But there are over-the-counter probiotics. If you want to know which ones are the best to use, because there's different strains, 10 billion, 15 billion, 30 billion. Of course, the higher the strains, the better, I guess. Just consult your doctor to see what is the best probiotics to be on. I will tell you, probiotics is really good, whether it's supplemental or getting it this way. It is really good for the digestive tract. It does cut down on bloating. I'm a personal witness. It cuts down on bloating. The foods that are rich in prebiotics, again, the brother to probiotics. It is a fertilizer I look at it as a fertilizer for your gut garden. That's the way I look at it as well. But basically, it makes the probiotics stronger to endure the fight with the bad bacteria. Can you just imagine what goes on in our gut to keep us healthy? Wow. So the prebiotics foods, garlic is good. It's got prebiotics. Would you ever think that garlic had prebiotics in it? And then another one is onions, because I've heard people say, what is the nutritional value of onions? Well, onions have prebiotics, and there's nothing wrong with eating onions. I mean, you can eat onions all day probably, and nothing could, not bad for you. Grill them if you can also. But onions is good, and I love grilled onions. I will not eat a hamburger. When I do cheat on a hamburger, and I make my own hamburger, I don't even get them from the store. But when I decide I want to cheat on a hamburger, it's going to be mine from home. I'm going to put those onions in it and the different ingredients that need to be in it to make it good, and then I will throw in those grilled onions. And I would say, I don't need another store hamburger. When I do cheat, I make my own at home. Oats, again, be careful with that. When you see the Quaker oatmeal and they have on there, good for cholesterol, I do believe that. I have tried it, and I especially really kind of binged on a little bit just about a month before my physical, so I can see if there is a difference in my numbers. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it was just coincidence, but usually my numbers are good. But you have to be careful with that because oatmeal is full of carbohydrates. But and again, I discussed that in part of my other nutritional program. You have to count what you call your net carbs. So whatever fiber is in your product, you subtract that from the carbohydrates, and that's truly what your carbs are, but they're called net carbs. But what people don't realize, I've seen people eat a whole bowl of cereal. You have to look at your servings, and people will look at the container and think that's what you're getting in. You have to break it down and look what they're saying the servings is. So if someone has a whole bowl of cereal and the serving is saying that 1/3 cup of uncooked oatmeal is 30 grams of carbs, and you got a whole bowl of oatmeal, you probably got about 3 times that amount in there. And then you're probably taking in about 90 grams of carbs. That's a lot. I know it's hard for people just to do a little bit of oatmeal, but when you do a whole bowl of oatmeal, you are taking in a lot of carbs. Even if you subtract the fiber from that, it's still a lot of carbs. So when you do start looking at your labels and paying attention, make sure you definitely pay attention to the serving. Just like when you get a soda and you think you're doing good, you buy, say, a 16-ounce soda, and it says, and soda has a lot of sugar, and let's say 80 grams of sugar. So you think you're doing good, and even though that's too high, but guess what? That 80 grams of sugar may just be for the 8 ounces part of it and not the whole 16 ounces. So again, be careful when you look at your labels to look at the serving. We also have leeks and asparagus. Asparagus, I love leeks. I've never tried, but it's good in prebiotics. And we've always heard that asparagus is good for you. That's probably one reason why, is because of the prebiotics. And then we have the apples. Apples can be good for you. It's got prebiotics. Be careful because apples is one of the sweetest fruits that you can eat. When you are diabetic, yes, everybody keeps saying all these years fruits and vegetables, fruits and vegetables. You have to be careful with fruits anyway, but especially when you're diabetic, because remember, you can't eat all the fruits you want all day long. So when you see these commercials on TV that's making these smoothies, and they're making the smoothies with a banana, apple, what else now? Help me out. A pear, a pineapple. I mean, on and on and on. That's not good for anybody. You got to take half of that away and add half vegetables. I usually do spinach. It's spinach with mine. I usually do spinach, and avocado, and I'll get to that in a second. But no, you cannot do a whole smoothie and fruit and think that's nutritional. It is absolutely not. Yes, does it weigh differently when you take it in? Of course, because remember, anything that has fiber connected with it is going to be better for your system, because fiber controls how well you're going to regulate your sugar throughout the body. Because when that sugar starts plunging in from something really sweet you have eaten, it's going to linger around in your bloodstream. When it starts to get chronic, it's going to stay in your bloodstream. That is when you're going to start coming into all different type of problems. You don't want that sugar hanging around in your bloodstream too long. You want that insulin to come out of hiding, which is in your pancreas, and start coming into the blood to help you support that sugar into the cells, because what needs the energy? It's our cells. So that's why when you got sugar hanging around in your bloodstream and you start to feel weak and you start to feel tired, especially after you've eaten something and you start to feel a little jittery because you had too much sugar, because that sugar is laying around in your bloodstream, but your cells is the one that needs the energy to make you feel well. So you want to be careful with that. Again, the insulin is the transporter to transport the blood into the cells. Again, as we get older, we go into menopausal years, those hormones have a effect on the way the insulin works. And this is why our body starts to doing things we do not want it to do, because those hormones is making things work differently. And when we talk about our hormones, you hear a lot of times people say we're at war with our hormones. Are we really at war with our hormones? How can you be at war with something that's leaving you? You're usually at war with something that's staying there fighting you. So really, we're not really at war with our hormones. We want them to stay, but they're actually declining, and we have to readjust to those declining hormones. Not just the estrogen, but we also have the progesterone and the testosterone. Although the estrogen is the biggest hormone producer in our body. We'll get into that later in another segment as well. Then you have, let's see, peanut butter, sourdough bread. Yes, believe it or not, has prebiotics. Again, be careful with the sourdough bread because even though it has prebiotics, but again, it can be high in carbs as well. Peanut butter is really good for you as well. Just make sure, read the label. You got some peanut butters that is really good for you, depending on the ingredients, and some of them are not so good. Other fibers that are rich, other foods that are rich in fibers, but not necessarily in prebiotics, is avocado. Ladies, if I can tell you, avocados is one of the most nutritious food, yes, you can eat. I eat usually one a day, but I think my average is one every other day, because avocado is another one I had to acquire a taste for. Do I like the taste of it? No. Is it really good for you? Absolutely. It has loaded with fiber. It is not a vegetable. It is a fruit. It is loaded with fiber and carbs. But by the time you take that high fiber content and subtract it from the carbs, your net carbs are really good. Not only that, when I partner my avocado up with my salmon, because both of them are supposed to be good for inflammation. And what does inflammation cause? It causes pain. It doesn't matter where it is. Mine is my back, because by me being a nurse for so many years, for over 30 years, and pulling up on patients, it did really give me chronic back problems. When I stick to that, and I'm not saying I stick to it every day, although I will binge on it and stick to it every day for certain reasons. But when I really stick to it, I don't know if it's me, it's in my mind, it's my imagination. It's just my imagination. But anyway, I have less pain. I have less pain. And so because I feel like it's from that and I have less pain, I continue that. But yes, salmon and avocado, things like that, is supposed to be good for your heart and good for inflammation. And that is one of my favorite foods that I stick to when I'm trying to maintain a healthy gut. And like I said, sometimes I do jump off the bandwagon and I do get something that I can enjoy every now and then I get back on that bandwagon and I do what I'm supposed to do. My menopause program teaches about not just being consistent. My main thing is being persistent. Don't beat yourself up if you were not consistent. Just continue to try to be persistent. And that works to me really well. And then we got to remember, I think I just said this, fiber helps regulate your blood sugar. And then also we want to avoid excessive alcohol and smoking. That is a terrible thing for your gut. It can lead to an unhealthy gut in excessive amounts. I don't see as many women smoking like I used to years ago. Years ago, and I mean years ago, probably 30-some years ago, there were a lot of women that smoke. I don't see that too much now. I don't even know if I see the men smoking too much now. So I don't know if they still sell, I never did, but do they still sell the Pall Malls and I remember my grandmother and them, the Winstons and the Salems. Do you all remember those? Okay, I was just trying to see. Okay, let's move on. And then the other thing is hydration, ladies, in our menopausal years, especially for the ones, oh gosh, I could tell you a story about me, but that's for a later time. I went through a lot. I really was in some dark places in my menopausal years. Hydration is important, and I tell you why. And you probably already know why. Not only is our kidney, our brain, our liver, is an organ, our skin is an organ. It is the largest organ on our body. Yes, it is an organ. When you go through hot flashes, I was trying not to mention that word. I didn't think you guys wanted to hear that now. But when you're going through hot flashes, which can be miserable, absolutely miserable, and we do talk about that in the 8-week program. Matter of fact, 1 week is really dedicated to that. But you sweat out a lot of fluid. Think about it. This whole skin is an organ. If you're sweating through this whole organ, you are losing a lot of fluid. So you walk around sometimes wondering why you're feeling a little dizzy and faint. You may want to think about what your intake was that day for fluid. You know, I talked to somebody one time that told me she didn't like water and she don't drink water at all. And I'm trying to sit here and figure out how in the world is she getting through life not drinking water? If I don't have water for 1 day, I'm probably going to wind up in the emergency room. Well, I might be exaggerating a little bit, but I have to have water in my system because I was one of the ones that had really, okay, let me take one really out, hot flashes. So I'm letting you know that keep up with your hydration, 8 to 10 glasses today, even a little more if you have a lot of sweating from your hot flashes. Another controversy. Be careful with your water intake. Don't gulp it down all at one time because there is something called water intoxication. That can be dangerous, ladies, very dangerous. I have taken care of a couple of people in my lifetime as a nurse with water intoxication. When you drink too much water, what does it dilute out? It dilutes the salt out, but it dilutes it out too much, where it takes your sodium level down so low that it can cause serious problems. If you remember the story of the lady with the water intoxication, I think just last summer, I believe, you cannot take in, first of all, your heart and your lungs, especially for people that have like congestive heart failure and have problems with your heart or lungs, you cannot take in, let's take, for example, the 500 bottle of water, or milliliter, cc is the same thing, 500. You cannot sit there and gulp 3 of those bottles down in one time. Absolutely not. It's dangerous. You have to spread it out. I know it's a little difficult for those that are still working. Oh, a lot of us are still working, but those are still working, but you can't run to the bathroom every 5 minutes because if you come back, your boss may have a little write-up at the table for you. Want to know why you're going to the bathroom so much? So you do have to be careful, and that's what makes it so hard for us because we know we need the water, but if we're working, how are we going to get it in? You can catch up a little bit when you get home, but you have to spread it out, ladies. So if you're taking a 500 cc bottle of water, you may want to wait an hour, hour and a half before you're taking another. You cannot gulp it down all at one time. Possibly when we were younger, we used to do things like that because I definitely remember when I was 17, 18 years old, when I was thirsty, I would drink so much water at one time. We would come out from playing and come back in the house and it was hot. We can't do that as we get older. Our body is totally different. So take in your water, but be careful of how much you take in at one time as well. So I hope you got a little bit of new information out of this material that I presented to you in this second half and the first half as well. But restoring gut balance can play a significant role in reducing the menopause belly, or if you want to say the menobelly. Research suggests that gut health influences hormonal balances, metabolism, inflammation, all of which affect belly fat during menopause. Again, we talk about that visceral belly fat. If you are having bloating, diarrhea, constipation, or any digestive issues, your gut is trying to tell you something, ladies. Again, pay attention to those little whispers because those little whispers will get louder and louder and louder until it's going to be harder to control what's going on with your body. And I teach that again in my menopause program, not letting menopause take control of you. You are going to take control. You are going to have the power. But you got to listen to those little whispers. I had a little joke here. I don't even know if I should say it, but you're going to probably read it anyway and might not feel like it's too funny because I'm really not a comedian. But it says, hey, we got more leaks than a gossip column of a family reunion. It may not have been so funny. But the point I'm trying to make is take care of your gut. And with this venogram, when you bring it all together, when you do the calorie cutting and the prebiotic foods and everything together, and one other thing I wanted to mention as well that I stuck in here at the last minute is stress. Stress can maintain weight on you because there's something that's released called cortisol, and we've heard of that. Some people may say cortisol. And when you're stressed, it releases into the bloodstream, and it does all type of things to your system. And I'm going to tell you how you know this is true. There may be an anxiety situation you have or a panic attack. That all releases cortisol. You know why? Cortisol gives you those symptoms of shortness of breath, tachycardia, and I know you probably say, please use regular words, high pulse rate. It also can make some people feel like they're actually having a heart attack. And really, I know you should always get these things checked out. If it don't feel right, yes, take yourself to the emergency room. Sometimes for some people, it's just that, a panic attack or an anxiety attack. And there's a difference, but I don't go into that now because that's for down the road. But anyway, that's what that cortisol is doing. It releases that hormone to make you feel that way. But it also has an effect on the gut as well. So ladies, we also, it's so hard to do in the type of world we're living in today. Boy, is it hard to do. But we do in our menopausal years need to also try to control a little bit of our stress level. So many things out there we can do to control that. And again, we talk about that in the program. I think what it is that sometimes we know these things are out there to do, but I don't know what stops us from initiating some of these tips or remedies that will help. I don't know, maybe we'll try to figure that out a little later as well. So without a strong gut foundation, and listen to this again, without a strong gut foundation, every weight loss effort will collapse. That foundation will absolutely collapse. Nourish your gut and your results become lasting and powerful. Well, thank you for sticking around with me and being patient. I hope my whole mission is to present, yes, there's going to be some old information that you already know, but also to present some new information that you can take away with you that you have learned, that you can apply. So until next time, I will be here. I am on YouTube, always pretty much weekly. I'm giving more helpful tips. Folks, follow me on YouTube. That's down below. You can subscribe. Also hit like as well. Comment. I would love to hear a comment from you. And please share this video if you would, because it would help a lot of people. I'm trying to get to a bunch of people at one time. I used to do my health coaching also one-on-one. But when I think about how, and of course it is more private because, they can talk about their medical condition, things like that. But you don't really need that a lot of times. My health coaching, group coaching program is not about for people to start telling me their medical conditions and stuff, especially when it's in a group coaching setting. That is private for you. So we're not there for you to start talking about all of your private information. I'm just there to educate you and give you material that you can take away and start applying to your everyday living. So until the next time, ladies, take care and be kind to yourself. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.